Good evening, and a very pleasant welcome to you all,
Good evening.
especially those of you who made the effort to be here in person. You always get a very special welcome. And those of you on Zoom, well, we're glad you are joining us for this session this evening. And if I could remind you why you chose to come, we're going to be talking about the power to forgive and to let go. The power to forgive and to let go. That in itself has its own suggestions about the formula. And so we'll see if we can agree how that works. I'll start by saying, I'm sure you've heard it said that that to err is human and to forgive is divine. So there's something very special about being able to forgive. And so if we are to start there, then that would lead us towards divinity in a way that would mean that you can bring that practice into your lives. And of course, if you're able to do that, then the benefits are unlimited. There's a benefit to you, and there is benefit to those who are the recipients. What comes to mind with regard to forgiving is that it calls upon us to be merciful, to be compassionate, because it means if you're going to forgive someone, then it means you are taking into consideration the fact that we make mistakes, and a lot of the time the offense that we might take that causes us to have something that we might say we're holding against that person, it becomes very personal, and it's because you're holding on to that there is you're affected by it as well. So when the idea of letting go allows for this freedom, there's another way it's put very beautifully, where everybody benefits, and I think of I don't know which which one of the many plays that this comes from, but it says that the quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as a gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath, and that it is twice blessed. It blessed him that gives and him that takes. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this. By forgiving, you're bestowing blessings on others, and at the same time benefiting from that yourself. And so this idea of letting go is really why you get even more benefit than the person who is the recipient, because you may be feeling that offended in some way, feeling wronged in some way, feeling victimized in some way. And so the only way to relieve yourself of that, and to relieve that situation, is to, you might say, confront it, to acknowledge it, and to allow yourself and the person with whom you may have a difficulty with to revisit it, and to see what's at cause, what are the circumstances, what might have brought it about. Because in forgiving, it means that there's more than one person involved. And so we always have to take responsibility for any situation where there's an interaction, because even though we might think the problem is over there, remember, the person that you thinking that you're victimized by, they feel the same way. And so a lot of it has to do with misunderstanding. And so there's growth as a result of that. In other words, you become more, not just more compassionate and merciful and understanding, but you become more far-seeing. In other words, you get to a place where, if you understand your own motivations and how others might be motivated in their actions, you can then avoid a lot of the conflicts that we have, that leads to the kind of poor relations, if you will. And these things are not to be taken lightly, because they operate at every level. They operate at an individual level. They operate at a community level. And of course, they operate at a national level as well. You know, we have countries right now in different parts of the globe in conflict with each other. And as I'm sure you've heard it said, wars and conflict begin in our hearts, begin in the hearts and minds of men. And so that has led us to a lot of conflict. And if there can be forgiveness, if there can be reconciliation, if there can be an effort to have an understanding and a coming together, then we have that unity. We have that unity of purpose. And so this evening, I want you to, as we're having this conversation, you need to make it as personal as you can. Meaning, where in your life, where in your circumstances, where in your interactions, there is need for more understanding. Where in your approach to things, you might find a way to avoid the kind of conflicts that leads to the communication breakdown. Because usually, where there's a need for forgiveness, there is no communication. The communication has stopped, and there are things that need to be made clear that are unclear. And so, for the most part, it's a function of communication. And so, as you're listening, you need to be looking to see where does that what resonates with you in what we're talking about. that you might put into practice, because we don't want that this just is a nice discussion and a nice point of view, because the world that we're living in now, it couldn't be any more divided than it is. We have so much division, and just when you think we have enough splinters everywhere, there's more, and it seems like we're investing in this individualism at the expense of community, and it's very expensive, and it's very costly in a very debilitating way. We are less whole if we are less united. And so whatever brought you to this conversation tonight is what you should leave here ready to attend to, or else it's just a nice conversation. Does that make sense? Okay. How many of you are here for the first time? Anyone here for the first time? Oh, wonderful. Oh, well, you get a special welcome. Very glad to see you. So is there anything that you want to add to the conversation before we continue? Because we don't want this to be a lecture. What are your thoughts on the subject? Something in the topic brought you here, and especially since winter seems to be coming back, but you're you're here. And those of you online, please, what is it about this topic that's inviting, that's intriguing, that's interesting? What for you what would be the takeaway that would make a difference?
It is in our interest to forgive because we cannot change others.
Yeah, can you use mic so that people?
Yeah, we want to include the folks online. Yes.
Because we don't have control over others. Others' behavior is based on their past experiences and upbringing and sanskars. Our behavior is based on our sanskars.
Mhm.
And so if we have control over our mind only.
Mhm.
So if we don't forgive others, we will be a football of their behavior. Our happiness will depend on others. So we should not hand over key of our happiness to others. We should forgive immediately and forget and get around.
Mhm.
That is in our interest. Otherwise, we will always be suffering because we can't change others.
Mhm.
Others will behave as per their sanskars,
Mhm.
upbringing. So we can never be happy if we go on, we wear shoes only because we want to save our feet from the rough
Mhm.
roads. So similarly, we have to safeguard our interest by letting
Mhm.
go, by forgiving others.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that the disharmony is within, in because we are at odds with ourselves as well. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind, that more often than not, where the forgiveness starts is with the self, because you may have inadvertently offended someone, or did something in error, or maybe even unknowingly. And there is a lot of guilt associated with that, a lot of feeling of not taking responsibility and wanting to take responsibility. And so it's important that you appreciate the value of being pardoned yourself, because we sometimes forget, or maybe we're not even aware that we can objectify the self. And if you ask yourself, and you should from time to time, why did I do that? You will get an answer. You will get an answer. And that's part of the wonder of who we are. And so a lot of the answers that you might be looking for, you have, but you have to make that inquiry. And so all of our focus shouldn't be on what is what the results are of your actions that you are dealing with, but also you needed to be focusing within as well. And if you're at odds with yourself, then that is a problem. Yes, someone on Zoom?
Yes, the reason I'm here is because my husband cheated on me financially. And I want to know how to forgive him. He's older, so I did tell him I forgave him, but it still was a stab in my heart. And I really don't know how to let it go.
So you want to know how you can forgive them?
I don't know how to let it go. That's what I'm dealing with. Letting go. It's hard to let that go. We were married 25 years.
Yeah. Well, the act of forgiving itself is what allows you to let it go. Because what you may be resisting is making an admission of what you might think of as your own wrongdoing, or being willing to accommodate the failures of the person that you have this challenge with. And so the step you need to take is to have that conversation. And that's where the letting go occurs. Because what's happening is that you are relieving yourself of that burden. So that is what the letting go is. It's relieving yourself of whatever it is you're holding on to. So you have to take that step, even if it's as difficult as it might be. Yes.
To take the step of having a conversation with him, you mean?
Oh, indeed. Yes. It is usually communication that will begin that process. Because if there is no communication, if there's no conversation, then a lot of what you might even be holding on to could be something that you're mistaken about. How many times we've had a situation that we felt quite sure about regarding someone else or some occurrence, and then we find out that we were mistaken. And so
But I wasn't mistaken. He admitted he cheated.
No, I'm not saying that you were, but what I'm making the case for is beginning the conversation. because whatever may have occurred is something that needs to, you need to be relieved of that, that feeling of being victimized or wronged, if that's the feeling. But you're not going to, that's not going to happen unless you have the conversation. It's not going to happen.
I had the conversation. He said, I don't know why I did it.
You know, there are a lot of it is pent up and gets worse over time. The longer the time between the incident and whenever you have that opportunity to mend it. Yes, you were.
I think it will help to, it will help to know how we can increase the power of forgiveness. What are the steps we can take? Because it's not easy process. So that's what I would like to know, what we can do or understand the situation or a person, whatever it is, to learn that, practice that, so then it will help me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, remember where we started with this, that what has to be accepted is that to err is human. In other words, errors are part of the course. Mistakes are going to be made. And so once you have that as your starting point, then that immediately means that you are willing to accept responsibility yourself, because you're not immune to error, and neither is the other person or persons. Yes.
I'm looking to understand what's the boundary between pushing for your understanding of a situation and forgiving, or being naive about it and kind of shutting your eyes to it and then forgiving. So where do we draw that boundary?
Okay, just say the last part again.
So do we keep pushing our understanding of the situation and then forgive, or we let go because we have no choice and we're just being naive about it and we forgive?
Yeah, well, remember that it would always be helpful to understand the situation, because without some understanding of the situation, then you can't really have a discussion that is honest. And so it's what needs to be said is where that person is coming from. And it is always going to be helpful to understand that, because their circumstances are not going to be the same as yours. And sometimes the conclusions that we come to are based on our own circumstances, our own perspectives. And so there's a lot of shoulds associated with others, because you expect them to behave a certain way based on your own understanding of the way things should be. Now, yeah, go ahead.
I will advance what she said, if I understand correctly. Then where to draw the line between forgiving and not forgiving? Am I correct? Where to draw the line where we are accepting and we are making choice not to forgive,
Mm-hmm.
and where to draw the line? The other person should not misuse my forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think like figuring out when you forgive someone, if you should forgive them and continue the friendship or relationship, or forgive them and just not speak to them, but not,
Okay.
have that grudge.
Mhm. Well, if you let go, if the forgiving um, allows for what the best way to describe it is completion, because there's something incomplete, which is why there's need to forgive. There's something incomplete. And so when you're saying where do you draw the line, it's the line that is causing the disagreement, the conflict. So you want to really erase that line. But what's important is that you are complete. That's really what's important. It may very well be that the other person or persons involved still have more that needs to be resolved. But it's your completion that's essential, because you have to be satisfied that you have done what you need to do and say what you need to say with regard to whatever role you may have had in the conflict, and also make it clear that the other person is just as prone to error as you were. And so you're okay with whatever mistakes may have occurred, and that you are complete. You're no longer carrying any animus in the situation.
Oh, that's what I wanted to know. What do you mean by complete?
Ah, okay. Okay. So when you are complete, you are free of any resentment. You are no longer angry, if that was the case, and you are distrustful. In other words, all of the things associated with that incident no longer obtain. You were complete. In other words, there are situations where with whom you have issues, if you see them, if you see them first, they'll never see you. In other words, you would avoid contact with them. Okay, so that is part of the completion as well, where you are okay in their company. It doesn't mean that you necessarily want to re-engage them in a close friendship necessarily, but you are okay with their company. You no longer see them as a threat. You no longer feel victimized or in any way carrying any resentment. And that is the completion. So you then can say you have let go. Yes. Okay. Can't get there without communication. You have to, can't get there without starting the reconnection, because what we're talking about is reconnecting. One of the things that we emphasize here in terms of what yoga means is connection, right? And the ultimate connection that puts us all at peace, that puts us all in unity, that puts us all in harmony, is with our creator. And so you can't get the benefit of that without connecting. And the same thing applies with all of your relationships. What is happening that is causing us so much disharmony and conflict is that we are disconnected, and we haven't been able to reconnect in the way that is most essential, which is in the aspect of us that we all have in common. And that is where you find the unity, find the opportunity to have that harmony. Yes.
That questions was raised, I think it is unanswered. I'm
Okay.
saying it's good, I can forgive, she has misbehaved me, I can forgive because we are not living.
Mhm.
But when I'm living together with somebody and where to draw, what I'm saying, where to draw the line of acceptance, forgiveness, and choosing to come out of that
Mhm.
relationship. Maybe son and daughter, maybe husband, wife, maybe close relationships. It is very easy. I will forgive, and you will forgive me for my misconduct.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when it becomes the anxiety, the question is that others should not take for granted. If he's taking for granted, we are forgiving every day, we are forgiving every day now. Then what happens? Is it okay?
I think I have some answer for that. Spirituality teaches us that you have to be over and above that situation. So you need to understand, need to think that everybody is God's child and God loves them all. Whatever happens is due to some sanskar, whatever they. So you need to do your part, not have the bad feelings. So you can say you forgave or whatever you did, but once it will take time. If you keep on practicing that, other person will change because he'll see your behavior and it will change.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's my take.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm using extreme examples. I come from Delhi and I see many ladies that they are being beaten in their houses, poor ladies especially, who work and their husband don't do anything. And they are accepting as it is their fate. Or for example, take in Islam, they say, about triple talaq or the other practices. So means you are unable to change the mind of others.
Mhm.
So where to draw the limit?
Okay. Let me address that in two ways. Mutual self-respect is important. The most important, though, is your own self-respect, meaning how you feel about yourself should not be dependent on how someone else feels about you. So in other words, if you, in your own life, your own way of being, have within yourself and set all of the right standards and boundaries, if you will, where you're able then to deal with praise the same way you deal with dispraise. In other words, you are the same in being admired or not, because you have that the highest level of respect for yourself, and it's not dependent on how someone else feels about you. Then you can deal with anyone in any situation, and you can be respectful to them. So it starts here, and your own level of self-respect would be what you would be able to combat any situation that you're dealing with, because your well-being is not dependent on someone else's. That's really a very, very important development. Yes, you would. If the green light is on, it's working. Just get it close to you.
No, I just have a question about how do you cultivate self-respect?
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Like, how do you keep practicing that? Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, someone on Zoom wanted to say something?
Yes, Brother Nat, I think that it's a step process, at least for me. Like a couple years ago, just to give a quick example, I had a very heated interaction with a family member. And so after this situation where I felt disrespected for every day for a continuation of at least 3 months before I blew up. I blew up. I had had enough. And so after the verbal conflict incident, I was disappointed in myself that I did not handle that situation better than that. And so I had to ask myself some questions first about my part. And the answers that you talked about that we will get if we ask ourselves some questions, I absolutely knew that no matter what this other individual did, what I did was wrong. My response was wrong. I did not improve this situation. I did not benefit that person. I did not benefit my own self. So now that I've been able to recognize that I too was under the influence of some external force that brought about this situation. Once I was able to see my part, the next thing was to offer my apology sincerely, but I had to first admit that I was wrong to me. And then once I was able to do that, offer my apology. Whether it's accepted or not doesn't matter. My part is to offer and to really sincerely mean the apology. Once I did that, and I came to the point where the freedom of letting go became my aim. That was like the third step. Wanting that freedom of the burden, of the guilt of the situation, that I did not handle that situation appropriately.
Yeah.
And so the desire for the freedom was what motivates total forgiveness. So it may sound a little selfish, but I remember, and I'm sure everyone has heard this, if every offense and every problem, you put a rock in a sack and ask me to continue carrying it, at some point, I want the relief from carrying that sack. So if it's resentment and all that kind of negative stuff, if I just put the bag down. So now it may sound selfish, but I'm more interested in getting the load off me than
Yeah.
I am of anything else. So to me, it's that kind of process, taking the steps, but taking them, because it's not going to happen without communication somewhere, even if that communication is with yourself.
Yes, well, that's where it starts. In other words, if we're looking for a first step, the first step is in taking responsibility for the situation yourself. If the other person is the only actor, then you're not going to be able to see what is your responsibility. So you have to take responsibility as a first step. And then that will inform the communication because you are not being accusatory. You are not being victim. You are not blaming. You are really now in an objective inquiry because what you have is a situation as much of your own making as it is of the other person. So that is step one. And once you start there, then you are going in the right direction. Yes.
Can I go first? You had referred.
You go ahead and then you can let her have the
I
microphone.
will.
Mhm.
You had mentioned that communication is important, and that would be one of the first tangible steps to take. But what if on communicating, you're unable to see or understand the next person's point of view or their reasoning for what they did, why they did? It doesn't match up with your ethics, your understanding of how to deal with the situation. So from that point forward, how do you move on for forgiving or forgetting?
Okay, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that your responsibility stops if the other person is not open.
No, you take the initiative to be open. You
Okay.
communicate, you hear them, but that does not align with your understanding of you still can't justify the action. You can't understand it because it doesn't align with how you would have operated. You don't see that as a valid response. So from there, how do you, after communicating,
Mhm.
move on
Yeah.
to forgiving?
Well, the release begins with you. So once you have begun that process, then the release for you has begun. Now, it may not be the come to a conclusion within a time frame that you would prefer, because this is more often than not a process. It's not one of those things that happens, immediately. But the moment you begin the process, you start to open up all of the possibilities there for reflection and for self-examination, and also for the other person taking responsibility as well. In fact, your willingness opens the door. And that is what's really important. You have to see it that way. Yes.
I was basically gonna say something very similar to what she said. Like, what do you do when it's situations where communication isn't like something that can happen, or like how do you move past that? How do you heal past that part when you can't communicate with the other person, or the other person is not willing to communicate, or like that's not even an option for your process when you come to yourself and realize, okay, I'm going to offer myself love and respect for the situation and try to see if it's reciprocated. But when that's not even an option or available, like how do you move on from that point? Like, what is the next step from that point?
Yeah. Well, do not take lightly the communication that is so important mentally. In other words, you changing your perspective. Okay. When your perspective changes, that is the first step, and it is a step that's likely to change everything. There's a wonderful I keep coming back to this statement that Wayne Dyer left us with, where he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so you may not be able to make that physical connection, but what's important is that you have changed your perspective. So you start to, you have a different point of view, and what you are interpreting, what you are seeing the way you were seeing it, you don't see it that way anymore. And that's also part of building up your own
And sometimes
self-respect.
when it's a battle, like one day you may see it like that, and then the next day you might feel defeated all over again. Like, how do you work through those moments?
Well, again, it's a function of growth, because you know, you're using the right word when you say believe, because one day you might believe something that leads you to a particular conclusion, and then with time and more information, that changes. And so that's also something that you should keep in mind in dealing with others, because remember, we're all, we might say, a work in progress.
Mhm.
And you want to have the consideration to give others and yourself room for growth. You're not complete. So this forgiveness being divine, this divinity has to emerge. And how it will emerge is by you putting into practice all of those things that you innately know that you need to do in order to make things better, to make yourself better. But having what we're talking about, by the way, which the word we haven't used tonight yet is courage. This takes courage, because you're going against ego. You're going against not only your own opinion, but the opinions of others, because there are also people in your circle who will agree with the position you've taken. And if it looks like you're changing that might suggest weakness in some way. It's really the opposite. It's really where the strength is. So what we're talking about is courage in the true sense of the word. And if one best way to be courageous, what it takes to be courageous, is selflessness in the true sense of the word. And by selflessness, it means that you're willing to take the risk, even if it means embarrassment, even if it means accepting blame, even though that may not be the case. But you need to have it takes courage to do that. So that's really what's in the way of most of the kind of steps that we need to take. And of course, the more courageous you are, the more of your own self-esteem and respect you are nurturing. So that's what this is. This is not an easy task. If it were easy, we wouldn't have so many countries at war, because in a lot of these negotiations, when they are looking to bring peace about, what gets in the way is one nation saying, well, we have to save face. What does that mean? What does saving face mean? Say that again?
Protecting ego.
Oh, indeed, protecting ego. Or to put it bluntly, we can't look bad.
Do we need more humble?
I'm sorry, say that again?
We need to be more humble.
Indeed, indeed. Humility. Humility is important. And of course, the more humble you are, the more self-effacing you're willing to be, the more you will be able to open those doors that are closed. And so this is not easy stuff. Because remember, you're going against the grain, by the way. The world that we are living in is not promoting what we're talking about. Okay? It's not promoting, it's promoting change through force. That's how it is nurtured. We're nurturing might being right, and all of what we're talking about is going in a whole different direction. And so you're confronting all of the stereotypes that have been made, that have become normalized. And so when you begin to go in this direction, you are dealing with some of your own ingrained, learned biases that you now have to break out of. And that's why the topic includes letting go. You have to be free of all of that. And you know, these wonderful sayings that we get that tell us in very nice ways what we're dealing with. I think of Mark Twain. He says that anger does more to the vessel in which it is stored than it does to the person on which it is poured. So we are damaged ourselves when we hold on to being right, when instead what we really need to be doing is making right, not being right. And it is an effort. It is something that it is a to-do before it becomes, before it emerges, because in essence, that's who we are. But over time, we have lost that connection. And this is about reconnecting. This is the essence of communication, because you communicate for the purpose of understanding. And when there's understanding, there's no conflict. So there is a lack of understanding, and the only way that's going to come is with communication. Yes.
The question she raised is staring in my mind, and wrong examples are coming to my mind. For example,
The wrong examples?
extreme example. If you permit me, for
No, it's fine. No, the wrong examples are, I'm glad that you put it that way, because it means that that's something that has to be put right.
Mahatma Gandhi did everything. Yes, we should all be together, but India was divided because some people will, forgiveness is good, but some people will take undue advantage. So this happened. Similarly, Israel was born in 48, and had it be believed that, okay, I'll change the mindset, reconciliation, it would not have survived. In last attack on it, the kind of attacks it had surfaced, last attack was by Iraq in 91. And Iran and Israel always gives a befitting reply. And now after 91, it has happened in 2024 now. So what, and again, Iran is scared that it will take revenge at appropriate time. There is, the world also knows. What I'm saying, what I feel, because that the young girl raised the question, that we have to we have to forgive. We have not to hold on, agreed. But we have to draw a line, how far I'll accept your misdeeds. I have to draw a line, and it should not be unlimited. That I'll go on accepting and forgiving and everything. There should be a line. I have to make a choice. I will accept up to this point. Okay, I'll forgive you. I will not hold on. I will not punish myself. You have done it. But then I'll give you basic. Then I will not hold on, but peacefully, without troubling myself, I'll like to withdraw. are
Mhm.
take suitable.
Yeah. Well, you see, if you can't see the possibility for full resolution, then you're not, what you're holding on to keeps you in bondage.
From somebody or looking at the passion as
Yeah, which is exactly where we are, even at the national level, which I was talking about, saving face and not appearing to be weak. What this conversation is pointing to is that that's really the opposite. In other words, it takes courage and strength to be that way. It's the other folks who are weak. We've turned that around. It's like we're hanging upside down. The strength is in your willingness to let go and to be vulnerable and to allow for all of the animus and all of the accusations, whatever it is, to come to the surface. Because again, with your own respect for yourself being so high, it's not dependent on whether or on how they see you, but how you see yourself. And as long as you are coming from that high place, then you are never really going down, but always bringing that opposition up. And you will get to that get to that place where you have unity. But again, more often than not, you have to get there first. Yeah, you have to get there first. And once you are there, once you are free, then you can help to free others. Because if you're not free yourself, you really can't. So the work that has to be done starts with you. Wow, this is engaging. We were already at, we're already out of the time we set for this discussion. And I can tell that there are more things to be said. However, one important takeaway is be clear that the benefit to you is of much more value than this, but than not taking the step at all. As well, you benefit even more than the recipient, because it puts you in a position now to be more available to others who are in need of that kind of that space that you are now able to provide. So you are enlarging your own capacity for understanding, for love, for communication. And you can be that, you can be that lighthouse. You can be that lighthouse. And we need as many lighthouses as we can get, because there's a lot of ships lost out there. And it's okay to take that on, because your own well-being will be at such a high level. And ultimately, that helps us all. Okay. So let's have a minute or two of
Just a reminder for everyone here who is new. We at the center, we have what we call the Sanctuary of Peace. It happens from Monday through Thursday from 6 to 6:30. It's a half an hour meditation where you can come in person to the center and just relax upstairs in the meditation room and also use that time for contemplation for yourself. And there's always music and commentary so you can concentrate if you are not experiencing meditation. You can come and also invite others to come. And these lectures are also recorded on Zoom and YouTube if you want to go back and listen to it again. And there are other lectures that you may find it useful for you. And this Saturday, 20, there will be a workshop, being happy no matter what.
Yeah.
It is from 12 to 1:30. And I believe that Ananta will also conduct that workshop.
Yeah, please get yourselves on our mailing list if you're not. And that way we can stay in touch. And be sure to give us your feedback. We have the opportunity. You can do that by just photographing the QR code, which is right there. Okay, so let's, in the minute we have, just go within. And remember who you are. You are this very special being, this very special soul. Whole and complete. And whatever tarnish you have accumulated over time, understand that you have the power to be fully restored. You have the power not only to restore self, but to restore others by your example. And so, as you continue on your journey from here, find ways to lighten your load, be free of all of the encumbrances that interfere with your judgment and your discernment and your ability to care and to share. It is with that understanding, that unity, that all-encompassing concern for others that uplifts us and makes our world a better place, free of divisiveness and conflict and all of the fear and despair and sorrow that we can, by our own efforts, be fully relieved of and be fully free. Om Shanti. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And those of you on Zoom, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
nice.
brother.
Thank
We'll see you again
Bye-bye.
soon.
Thank you. Also, thank you for the power boost whenever you do it. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Om Shanti.